Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to St Andrew's Hall, Parish Centre, whatever you like to call it. It's my huge pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend Jeanette, who's going to deliver the talk that's named behind you. So a very warm welcome.
Oh dear. Well, it's lovely to be here. I think I was originally due to give a talk along these lines during COVID, so it's been a little while coming, and I was also down to do it last year, but sadly my dog died very suddenly just a couple of days before, and I kind of wasn't really in the right place to do this. So I'm here today, but this is literally the one and only time in my life that I will stand in for a bishop. We ought to have had Bishop Rose here today, but she is off having surgery, so we keep her in our prayers. I had a meeting with her during this week, and she apologised for not being able to come over this weekend. And I'm there thinking, what was she doing this weekend? What was she doing? She said, I hope it hasn't caused, too much inconvenience or problem. And I said, oh, Saturday. Yes, you were meant to be doing the breakfast speech. Well, I'm standing in for you. So there we go. But reluctant, because you kind of don't do this sort of thing very often. But what I hope to do this morning is give you a little bit of background as to who I am, where I've come from, things that have impacted on my life, my faith, and my call. So hence the reluctant storyteller. We go back, first of all, to...
You haven't changed a bit.
You can tell how old I am because it's a black and white photo. But that was me back in 1971, and I was born on the Isle of Wight, and Mum and Dad, that's Jim and Rose, they gave me a home where I was loved. Both of them were brought up in families, they had their own challenges in life, and when they had their family, they were determined that their children would know love. And it's fair to say that even to this very day, I am blessed that they are my parents and that they do still to this day show that love, that care, and it really has been something that has helped to form me. I am so grateful to the foundation that I was given.
They're going to be watching this, you want to wave at
You just never know. When I was going to be doing this talk in November, they'd actually come and book to have a breakfast here so they could do it. And that's the kind of parents they've always been, very supportive and great role models as well. Dad was a builder by trade, but unfortunately he had an accident quite early on, ruined his back, from which he still suffers from time to time today. One of my earliest memories was as a child of about, 18 months, 2 years old. Dad was up in hospital in London, and my mum had myself and my brother very young. And I can remember going up on the train to visit Dad in hospital, and I can remember some of the old men on the ward and things, just hazy memories that you have when you are so young, but they are my earliest memories. Dad later took a job with the council. He worked on the car parks. He was one of those people who put the tickets on your windscreen, but only if they were merited. And Mum spent a lot of her time raising our family. I'll come on to that in a minute. And she did various jobs, but most notably, she also worked for the council in housing benefits advice. And she was just saintly in that. She's always someone, my mum, who always thinks of other people and gives and gives and gives, and she's still doing that today. First house was 5 Ray Street up in Ryde there, and I was only there for a very short amount of time. My dad, being the builder, He loved to knock down a few walls and reshape and reconfigure things. And I think once he'd done with Ray Street, we moved on. But I'll show you where we moved to in a minute. I was one to start with, then my brother Jeff came along a few months afterwards. He and I, great mates, we still are to this day, and yes, again, there for one another. My sister Kate was born in 1978, and then you complete the set, she's hiding there. There's Joe, the youngest of the tribe, and yeah, we're all good. I think because of the age gap, Jeff and I, and then there's about a 6-7 year gap, we grew up quite close. The very day that Joe was born, my lovely nan had a stroke, massive stroke. And this is my mum's mum, who had been there, the help and support for my family so much. She had a massive stroke the very day that Joe was born. I was on a school holiday at Butlins. My mum had promised me she wouldn't have the baby until I got back, but what did she do? And I came home to find this beautiful baby sister, and my dad, who was always prone to a wind-up, saying, oh, and by the way, Nan's in hospital. And thereafter, my mum was not going to give up on her responsibilities to her own mother. So a lot of our time was devoted to making sure Nan was looked after and raising the 4 of us. So I think my brother and I were often looking after the little ones because Mum was off doing things with and for my Nan. We had a great routine. Nan lived in the next road down from us, and Mum would go and get her up in the morning, and at weekends certainly we would do meals on wheels, so an extra meal was always prepared in a little Pyrex dish, and then one of us would run down the road to Nan, and ours would wait and get cold on the side. We'd feed Nan, trot back up the road, eat our dinner, and then tea time we'd go round and spend a bit of time with her, and then Mum would go and pop her to bed. And that was the pattern for quite a number of years, and it was lovely. Nan was always so good to us, and she always had a sweetie tin in the front room. So great influence, and she died in 1990. So, and you know, I'm in a very fortunate position to say I've lost loved ones along the way, but Nan is the only member of my really close family that I've had to say goodbye to. So there we go, that was Nan. So we moved to 24 Player Street in 1972. My mum had my brother at home, and while she was upstairs giving birth, there was midwives up there. My dad was actually knocking down internal walls. But Mum said there was a bit of, in those days midwives smoked, and so the midwives were upstairs smoking, delivering my brother, and Dad was downstairs knocking down walls, and there was brick dust everywhere. So this is a more recent picture of 24 Player Street. My dad does Christmas lights, big Christmas lights, every year. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he has very few vices, but Christmas lights. Our loft is stacked. He does it for charity. They always raise quite a lot of money. They do it inside and outside. They have various groups, Brownies, Scouts, my mum's art group. They all come round, buy raffle tickets, and that's still gone on even this last Christmas. So that's 24 Player Street, and I've known it now since 1972. It's a great place. We are still a close family. This is us celebrating Christmas at Christmas. This is us celebrating Christmas in May 2021. You may remember the lockdown came just before Christmas, and we all had gifts to exchange and fun to have, but the earliest we could get down to the Isle of Wight to celebrate together was in May. So we had Christmas in May. They found a little Christmas tree and put it up, and there's some of my nieces and nephews. But it's a place where I've grown to know and love family. So, oh, there we go. Family do play an important part. This is the stair photo. My parents now have 11 grandchildren, And this is their set of stairs at the front. And every year since they were teeny weeny, and there was just a couple of them, they sit on the stairs and we have this annual stair photo taken. There's Barney at the younger. He's 21 years younger than my son, who's the oldest. So there they go in descending order of age. There's a set of twins there, my sister's twins. And then little Barney, Joe's little boy. So, and this is hot off the press. This was Wednesday. We managed to get 8 of the grandchildren together, my daughter's graduation. And 8 of them managed to get together to come and support their cousin, because it's kind of what they do. So that was really lovely. Right, moving on. Butter wouldn't melt. You might think. This person here, I went to Caversham House Primary School. It's now been knocked down, doesn't exist anymore. These photos were taken around the age of 4. And that was about the age I had my first interaction with God that I remember. I remember learning about God and being told that God was this being you couldn't see, but God was there. So I was told this was a fact. And I can remember challenging that. And this innocent, smiling face knew how to push boundaries all the time. My school report said it.
Nothing's changed.
Thank you very much, Nick. And I can remember at a very young age, about this sort of time, sitting in my bedroom on the floor and daring myself to say out loud, I don't believe in God. And as soon as I'd done it, the oldest child conformist kicked in, and I said, oh, yes I do, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that. But that, for me, was my first engagement that I can remember with God. And it stuck with me. And, yeah, I do remember. And like I say, it's that combination, isn't it? The oldest child's always the conformist. But at the same time, I did like to try and push my boundaries. So there we are. Now, here I am about the age of 9. I've had to rake through photos to try and get this together. I was in a tracksuit my mum made me, and my Butlins bobble hat. We had to wear them in school colours so they could pick us out in the crowd at Butlins when we went there. My nan knitted that for me. So this sort of age, I just started going to church regularly. After my mum had Kate, a lay reader from the local church came round, I think to talk about baptism, and saw my brother and I there, and said to my brother, oh, we could really do with you as a server at church. Why don't you come along and be a server? And so, with everything else, Mum said to me one day, oh, Jeff's got to go down to the church. Can you take him down and introduce, sit with him while he finds out about being a server? So Jeff and I went down, and the vicar was there, and he said, do you sing? And I'm like, don't know. Come and join our choir. And so it was that our connection with Holy Trinity Church in Ryde started. Jeff was serving, and I would sing in the choir. And that was Ascension Day 1979. I went to my first choir practice and thought I'd just go along and sing a little bit. And at the end they said, well, we've got a service now because it's Ascension Day. Straight over my head. So they whacked me in a black cassock and a white surplice, and I'm still wearing those today. So there we go. So this was just at the age where I was starting to go to church, and that's what it was. It was a kind of club thing, wasn't it? You go to church, you sing in a choir. I don't really think at that point I understood what I was doing. I was just going to church. So it was a very high Anglo-Catholic church. I loved it. I loved the rhythms and the routine and the liturgy and the richness and the incense and all those things. I loved it. But for a long time I was going to church. The next photo is quite hideous and slightly distorted. It's me on my confirmation day. Thankfully it's quite blurry. That's outside 24 Play Street. I was confirmed at the age of 10 after 10 weeks of really quite intense confirmation classes. And at the end of it, we had to make a confession. We had to go to confession. And again, it was all a little bit... And I can remember the vicar sitting there, sort of, expecting me to talk about all my sins. And I just said, I can remember saying, I'm really sorry for teasing my brothers and sisters sometimes. But again, none of this had any real meaning anywhere. I didn't really know. I was going through the motions, I think. When I look back, I guess that was still very formative and quite a part of it. There we go. This was, I've been to Glastonbury, not the festival, this is the pilgrimage. I did become a server as well as a chorister for a while, and we were quite high church. We had a team of, as I've said, 18 servers, and our vicar used to like to find jobs for most of us. So whether we had 3 crucifers and 2 acolytes with each of them, and my brother was often the theoropher, but we used to go to Glastonbury each year for an annual pilgrimage. There's my brother, my great mate Louise. She and I have been friends from the age of 7, still in regular contact now. Those were good times. They were really good times. And we then come, you'll be pleased to know, to a bit of a photographic interlude. Couldn't find anything to cover the next few years of my life. But actually, they were really important years in terms of that journey of faith. We had a new vicar come to the church who started a youth group. It was lots of house groups. And it was called, we used to change our name every year. We were Youth Link one year, Cross Link the next year, because we'd become a united benefice, and the whole idea of 2 churches, the Cross Link. We were Milestone for a year, but then people started calling it Millstone, so that got changed very quickly. This group was amazing, and I met some of my most amazing close friends, and I learnt about what being a Christian was. I learnt about who God was, and I realised very, very quickly then that He was there, and that He was a part of my life, and that going to church wasn't a Sunday morning club. That was just the place where I went for fuel. I learnt then that being a Christian is 24/7. And that was a really wonderful period of my life. This youth group, my dad ran the youth club. That was the table tennis and night hike side of things. And the vicar and his wife ran the youth group. And we did everything to explore our faith in ways that were fun and engaging. I could literally spend all day telling you some of the things that we did. One of my favourite was, back in the days before we had the technology we do now, we did a Holy Week. We learnt about Holy Week, and we did that by doing a tape and slide sequence. So we went out and we spent time photographing all the scenes from Holy Week, right from Palm Sunday through to Easter. We went to local parks. My brother was Jesus, and he was nailed on the cross with fake blood and all the rest of it. And then just a bit like this, we showed it to the congregation. And I can still hear now one of the voices, Holy Week. We are now entering Holy Week, the most significant week in the Christian year. That was my English teacher, who was also one of our youth leaders. And that was his voice on the tape that we did. And so the tape played through, and the slides showed all the events of Holy Week. So that was one way that we did it. We learnt about prayer and we learnt about discipleship, but it was all fun. We went on youth group holidays. I went to Wales a couple of times, went to Ascot, and those were times that were sort of, we'd start the day with prayer, and we'd have grace before meals, but then we'd go off and hike for the day and do touristy things and stuff. But they were just incredible times. And I can remember sitting in services thinking, I want to be a vicar when I grow up. And thinking, but everyone must want to be a vicar. Everyone must look at that job and think, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I hadn't realised then, it's only with reflection that I can see that that was those seeds being sown. I genuinely thought that was something that I wanted to do without realising it was something that I was being called to do. But we're talking about the 80s and women couldn't be ordained. So I knew so that was why I just thought it was almost a fantasy. I want to be a vicar, but I can't. So I went and did what I'd also wanted to do from the age of 6, which was to be a teacher. So anyway, have I got to the end of that little bit I was going to talk about? I think I have. Yeah, in that period, there was all those wonderful things. Holy Trinity Church became very much the centre of my life. And I remember one morning, I was about 18 by now, so time is passing. I had a very early morning job. I've always been an early morning person. This job was with a newsagent, and I started the day at 4:30. I had to go and pick up from the wholesalers the newspapers. I drove a transit van, 18 years old. This was amazing. I used to drive a transit van to the wholesalers, pick up loads of papers, drop them off at various newsagents, go to mine, mark up the paper rounds, and then work in the shop until about 8 o'clock, go home, get showered, and go about the rest of my day. Brilliant job, loved it. One morning, I'd woken up extra early, like you do. It was midsummer, sun was rising, so I thought, I'll take the long walk. And I walked down past Holy Trinity, and no one had locked it the night before. So I went in. And I had one of those moments. The sun was rising. There was this, the light in the church. Whenever I hear the story of the Transfiguration, I go back to that moment in Trinity. That the presence, the sense of silence, it isn't possible to put it into words, but it was a beautiful moment. And there was me and there was God in the church, which was so special to me. It was an amazing experience. And, you talk about things that are just meant to be, things that happen. I knew the importance and the significance of Jesus in my life and of my faith. And that moment there has never left me. I also failed, in inverted commas, my A-levels shortly afterwards. Didn't actually fail them. This was a very early mistake by the exam boards. But it was a sufficient mistake that I lost my place at Teacher Training College in 1989 and had to defer by a year. By the time they'd remarked the papers and said, oh, it was a mistake, you did actually pass, you could have gone to uni. I'd enrolled at the local tech college to do a 1-year A-level self-taught in RE. My school never offered RE, so it was a great opportunity. And so that's what I did. I taught myself RE, did an A-level, so I ended up with 3, and then went off to Christchurch University. Plan was always to go back to the Isle of Wight. That was home. I loved it. Nothing was going to take me away. Teacher Training College had to take me away because you couldn't do it on the Isle of Wight. But I was definitely going to go back to the Isle of Wight. Except I'm still here today, and there's a reason for that. I don't know what this is up here. I went to Christchurch in Canterbury, and very quick, first year I went to St Mildred's Church in Canterbury actually. Lovely church, full of old people who loved me. They really were a completely different generation, but I loved it at that church, but I missed my choir. I missed singing with the church choir. So when I went back for my second year, I decided that I would find a church choir. And I was walking to a church called St Paul's in Canterbury, because I'd heard they had a choir. And on my way to St Paul's, I bumped into a university friend called Adam. And Adam said, oh, what are you doing? Adam, incidentally, is now also a vicar. And I explained what I was doing, and he said to me, oh, don't go to St Paul's, they have got a choir. There's a really good one up at St Stephen's. So I said, oh, okay. So I, at that moment, that pure coincidence conversation, decided to go to St Stephen's Church Choir. And Jeremy had been singing there since he was about this high. And that's where we met, singing in the church choir. So we were married, those are the doors of Holy Trinity, we were married back on the Isle of Wight in 1995. And for better or worse, he's stuck by me. And here we are. He's been, he's helped me with life's adventure, raising 3 kids. And yeah, we have a good time, don't we? So, yes, definitely, yeah, you see, put your cap on there to hide the linen. Anyway, I'd always wanted to be a mum as well, and so babies came. We had Ollie in 1998, tiny little thing he was, and brought great joy. And then we were 2, and that was Becky. She arrived in October 1999. I think this was taken somewhere around the millennium. Rebecca didn't understand the concept of sleep, and my memories of the night of, and I'm sure Jeremy's too, the night of seeing in the millennium were just pure exhaustion. We had a 3-month-old baby who appeared to have a dairy intolerance. So she was great in the day, but an absolute nightmare overnight. So, yes, I think the bleary eyes say it all. And then, and Rebecca was also in a hurry. 1.5 hour labour. Jeremy, a little bit squeamish. I said, oh my goodness, I need to push. He called the ambulance, and they started saying to him, well, if the head starts crowning, we'll talk you through delivery. Thankfully, the paramedics got there first, and so Rebecca was delivered on our living room carpet. And insurance companies do pay up for such things, it turns out. So there we go. Then we were 3 children. I had just given birth, so excuse the sleepy eyes. Molly was born on December the 29th. We should have gone to church that day. Bishop Stephen Venner was going to be the preacher. But like all of my children, she put in an early appearance, so we never quite made it to church. And Molly's been a bundle of joy ever since. So there we go, 3 lovely children, and they've all got on well together. They still do, and we've had a lovely few days with all 3 of them around as well. And that era of motherhood has, I mean, anyone here whose parents know, it's just been the greatest joy. I knew I always wanted to be a mum, and I know why. Children are such a blessing. Yeah, you have good days and bad days, but underpinning it all is just fun. And we never had thousands of pounds to go throwing around, but we just had fun. And, continued to do so, really. And Ollie and Rebecca and Molly have just brought us great pleasure. And I loved it. And although I'd gone to the diocese in 2001, because that call to ministry was really strong again. And I went to a vocations thing. And then I met with someone who was a sort of vocations advisor. And she was quite scary. And so I thought, no, this isn't the time. And I've got little children. And so I continued with my teaching career. I was at St Mary's in Folkestone, did my final teaching practice there, and I was there for 24 years. I went back teaching. It gave me school holidays to be with my children, and we just had fun. We grew things in the garden. Molly was really into sprouts. She grew those herself, with a bit of help from Dad. This photo is special to me. It was in the cathedral. It was the Cathedral Christingle, and we'd gone there. And Ollie and Becky, this photo was in the local paper, but it was the day before Molly was born. So that photo was taken less than 24 hours before they became a big brother and sister again. So, yeah. There we go. The kids came to church with us, because you do. And Jeremy and I juggled singing in the choir, playing a role in the life of the church. Over time, they all joined the choir. Molly was always the funky chorister. Oliver was the reluctant chorister. He didn't want to join at first, which was fine. We were never putting pressure on them. But once Rebecca joined, little sister was doing it, he was like, I'm in there. Molly spent a lot of time initially sitting in the back pew with me, until one day the choir master turned around and said, Molly, I think we've got a small enough robe. She couldn't actually read at this age, but she loved the dressing up side of things, and so she also joined the choir. I've got photos of their confirmation. If the kids know I've put these up, they will probably be mortified. But they all took were confirmed at their choice. They chose to do that, and we put absolutely no pressure on them at all. And it was great. They were lovely. And as a family, we had some fun with the choir. St Stephen's Church was really important to us, still is. Jeremy's parents both still worship there to this day. This photo, one of the things that St Stephen's Church to this day has a joy in doing is on Christmas Eve, we used to go to the Archbishop's Palace, get invited in, sing a couple of carols for the Archbishop and his staff, get fed copious quantities of mulled wine and mince pies, and then process out into the city of Canterbury, and in Rose Square there, where all Primark and Marks and Spencer's are, there used to be community carol singing on Christmas Eve evening. Thousands if the weather was right, and it was a beautiful atmosphere. Each of the children in their turn did the solo of Once in Royal. Not for me. My legs were jittery as a parent. But it was great fun, and we were allowed to wear silly hats as well because it was Christmas Eve. So we had good times there, didn't we? Yeah. And the children continued to grow, because they do. And the adventures continued as well. And before you know it, children go from this to this. And it was during that time, I think it was about 10 years ago, almost exactly, I realised that my call to ministry had to be acted on. I was out walking my dog one morning, March 2014, early morning, of course, birds are singing, sun is rising, and suddenly it all became crystal clear and absolutely the thing I had to do. I went home to Jeremy, and straight away I remember stood in the kitchen saying to him, I have to pursue this call to ministry. And he said, I knew this day would come. There was one other hurdle, and that was my dad, because my dad did not see that women in ministry was the right thing. And it so happened that he came up to visit around that time, and I can remember sitting chatting with him, and he looked me straight in the eye, and he said to me, do you know what, Ned? It surprises me that you have never gone into the church. And I said to him, but how could I, Dad, knowing how you feel about that? And he said, if it was my daughter, I would have to have a serious rethink. And he's been my greatest supporter. And I think now he does see and value the ministry of women. But it was always something that had been in the back of my mind, because he was quite articulate on his feelings about that. So I trained for ministry. I went through the selection process that the diocese offer, which is rigorous, but actually I really enjoyed it. It was great because I got to discover really a lot more about my relationship with God and where my faith was taking me. And I spent 3 years juggling family, part-time theological training, and working still as a teacher. and great support from the whole family. The children were obviously that bit older, and Jeremy, and we worked together as a family, and it worked. And in June 2018 I was ordained deacon in the cathedral and came here, and I love it. This is just the best place to be. I knew at this point I was coming here for 4 years, 6 years ago, and I came to Tenterden, and I mean, it just, the contrast between East End of Folkestone, where I had been teaching, and Tenterden is huge. They are worlds apart, but there's still things from my days of teaching that I find come in useful here, and experiences that I had, and people that I have met. And so ministry here has, and you know, I feel like a round peg in a round hole. It just feels right. This was the day of my priesting with my fellow priesties, and that was great. And then, couldn't leave these people out. I work with the best team. And the team here, I mean, it extends to the congregations in our churches. The team here are brilliant, and we have so much fun. I think what really cemented things for Lindsay and I was COVID, in terms of Lindsay had so much experience but had never been through a global pandemic, and we both worked with a blank sheet of paper, supporting each other and starting to find ways to minister, to spread the word, to remind people that God still loved them despite those horrific things that were going on, was what we did during COVID. And so truly, truly blessed to come here and to be with all of these lovely people. And whilst I've been here, these three have now found their own way in life. Becky actually graduated first. She graduated 2 years ago. She did music, and she now works as a kind of freelance peripatetic piano teacher locally. She lives back at home with us at the moment, but she and her man Paddy have plans for their future. And then this time last year, Oliver graduated. He lives in Exeter now. He works as a doctor. He's in Exeter Hospital, and he's living down there with Rachel. And then this is so hot off the press. Wednesday shows that I did finish this an hour before I came out this morning. This is Molly. She graduated on Wednesday in musical theatre. She's going to take a gap year, and she's got plans and dreams, and Jez and I will do all we can to support her, because theatre's her thing, and whatever she does in it, she recognises that she may well spend most of her life working in Costa to supplement an income, but she's got plans and dreams, and that is a determined little girl there. Well, not a little girl anymore, young woman, and I think she will achieve what she wants to. These three still bring us great delight. There's another one there. Whoops. And all I want to do is just hope and pray that they continue with their dreams, but to know that we're always there for them if everything ever comes crashing down. That's all you can ever do, isn't it, as a parent? So, just very quickly, I obviously, I have lots of things that inspire me. I love walking, I love being out with nature. That's where I feel really close to God. I love sunrise and sunset. My camera is full of photos of sunrises and sunsets. I go out regularly at sunrise and sunset. Appledore, I live there now. Appledore in the mist and Appledore in the sun. What a beautiful view, what a beautiful world we live in. When things are tough, you have only to go and step outside into creation to be reminded how lucky we are and what good gifts God has given us. So I love doing the odd bit of photography. I'm not very good at it, but I want to do it more when I retire. So, yeah, just a few little snaps there. This is more to do with creation. I love being outdoors. One day I want to own my own canoe or kayak, because that's just something I love doing. We do it sometimes on holiday. I've done it since I was a girl guide many years ago. But yeah, that's something I do enjoy. But most of all, it comes down to this little bunch. And that was last night. Last night. We had a really unique experience last night, actually. It was just the 5 of us. And so last night we sat out and we enjoyed the sunshine in the vicarage garden. And Ollie is now winging his way back to Exeter. So, precious moments, aren't they all? So precious. And I've learnt in life you hang on to those precious moments. You give thanks for them. And, you know, give thanks for the people around you, the people you live with, the people you minister with, and every experience and good gift that God gives you. So that's kind of me. I hope it is to be continued. And there we go. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've all been regaled with a wonderful story, and I think the title was definitely wrong because there was nothing reluctant there. And I don't know about everybody else, but there was 2 things in Jeanette's story that stood out for me. The first was love, and the second was fun.
Yeah.
You seem to have had a life full of love and fun, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming this morning and sharing that with us. Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
You were brought up, I assume, in the Catholic tradition.
No.
Oh, really? And you said you went to a Catholic church?
It was an Anglo-Catholic church, so it was a very high Anglican church. You know, we did benediction. A lot of it, we were higher than the local Catholic church. But I found that whole thing, I have a love of liturgy to this day and the way in which we can worship God. And I was really fortunate to be immersed in that and given opportunities. I had a vicar who said, preach a sermon, do the prayers, and just gave opportunities. I was so fortunate, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'll do that. I was a lot more gung-ho in those days. Now, I'm definitely, on the face of it, a lot more reluctant. But it was just a very high Church of England church. So quite unusual, but very, very, open. And the children, the youth, very definitely had a place and a role. We were found jobs that enabled us to engage. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.